All right, so we're going to do a Bengals breakdown. I've got Coach K with me. Um, we're going to go through the Bengals draft, and then we are going to look at how the roster stands right now. Coach K, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good, hanging in there in the time of social distancing. So this is probably as good as it's going to get for us for a little while.
Probably.
So we're going to go ahead and start off with pick number one, the new franchise guy, Joe Burrow. What do you think about it?
Excellent choice. No brainer. Should have took about 2 minutes when the show started, but we had to listen to everybody talk. Peyton Manning, the national anthem, and all that.
Yeah,
Joe Burrow was the man.
seemed like it was a little heavy-handed with all the seemed like every draft pick basically had some terrible story that we had to basically relive all their past troubles they've had to go through and what should be one of the happiest days they've had.
If you looked at some of the draft picks houses they're in right now, they did not have a hard lifetime, or either the agent has bought them a new house already.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
But nobody beats Cliff Kingsbury.
Cliff Kingsbury, and then you had Bill Belichick who had a dog drafting for him. So,
but Joe Burrow, no brainers, starter from day one. Andy Dalton should be on the waiver list in 53 minutes.
Yeah, I can't imagine that Dalton will hang around. But Burrow's the pick. Hometown kid. He'll sell jerseys. He'll get people to come out to the stadium, and he's a great quarterback. So I really don't think there's anything that they didn't want to trade with anybody, and I don't blame them.
Correct.
Second pick, local kid, T. Higgins, filling out the receiving core. How do you feel about them bringing in T. Higgins?
Thought we had bigger needs than T. Higgins, but I'll take T. Higgins. Brings a lot to the receiving crew. Number one, which you mentioned in a text with me, he's healthy. Right now he's healthy. John Ross, we can't count on him. A.J. Green, contract year. But I really don't know if we needed a number two on a wideout. I guess he was the best available on their board at that time. And because the Tate had a good year last year, Boyd had a good year. But you got to give him weapons. And with the running back core and the wide receiver and the tight ends, he's got some options now. So I thought we overstretched there, but I'll live with it.
Yeah, I think a guy I follow on Twitter was talking about the receivers. I think he had said that A.J. Green and John Ross had played 4 snaps together since John Ross has been here. So obviously health is a concern for those two. And plus, I think receivers usually take a year or two to get acclimated to the league. So they probably, especially when we look at the rest of how this draft went, they probably wanted to get in another weapon for Burrow. And I would guess that they'll probably have more receivers on the field this year than they did last year.
Well, probably with the tight ends too. John Ross, he's had his chance. He better stay healthy this year or he'll be a training camp. Well, I don't guess they can cut him. He's got too much money in the cap right now, but he's about at that point. He's got to stay healthy.
Yeah. The next 2 picks, I'll go ahead and lock them in together since they're the same position. They had Logan Wilson, linebacker from Wyoming, and then they took Akeem Davis-Gaither from Appalachian State. Both are linebackers. Wilson's more of a traditional linebacker, where Davis-Gaither is more of an edge rusher, a smaller guy. What do you think about them bringing in 2 linebackers in this draft?
Great. I thought they could have drafted 7 and I would have been happy, but I think you and I talked earlier. Gaither, he may be a starter from day one because he can move. Let's see, on my chart here, off that thing we got off the Athletic, they had him a 2nd round grade, so they got him in the third First pick of the was he the first pick of the fourth or the first pick
Yeah,
of the third?
first pick of the fourth.
All right, so we got a linebacker with a second round grade that they coached at the Senior Bowl, and then we get a inside linebacker in Wilson who they coached. What he
Yeah,
he's we got him what first pick of the third,
yeah,
and he's the third grade. So excellent picks there, and I think you mentioned I think they were both captains at their schools, and our linebacking core looks immensely better now with those two, and the kid we picked up from Baltimore and Pratt's back.
yeah.
So
I
we
think
look better.
Bonds will end up starting at the beginning, but I think Wilson will work his way in. I know there's some injury concerns with Davis Gaither, but he had surgery in the off season. But I think they said he'll be ready to go by camp.
Well,
So
we got to have some bodies. We can't go in there with two, and then you got Sean Williams also who can help out probably if they don't cut him. But
right, I think Williams will probably stick around on the team. I think they can use him more. They go. I think where I read that usually they're in nickel instead of running the actual 4-3. So
right.
Really, you only need two core linebackers, but you definitely need some depth, especially when you play a team like the Ravens, who are running all over the place, and you
Making
need
it look
those.
silly.
Yeah. Go into the fifth round. They took Khalid Kareem, who was a defensive end, or an outside linebacker if you run a 3-4. What do you think about them bringing in an edge rusher like Kareem?
Need one. Dunlap's getting up there in years. Of course, Hubbard will be here for a while. And my man John Bryce, he writes up there. He said that writes for Notre Dame now. Said that Kareem solid on all character, on everything. He was probably a better football player than the guy that got selected ahead of him that had more publicity.
Mm-hmm.
Said he's not as athletic as that kid. Yes, but he said he was the real deal. He's a football player. He's not one of these combine athletes that test out well. He said that great pickup for the Bengals. Help our defense. Solid on that pick. Great A on that one.
Yeah, it seemed a lot like the Bengals instead of past years. They're going for guys who they think that can contribute. They may not be all-stars or anything, but they've whiffed on so many picks in the past few years that they just need some stable guys to come in and give them some depth. And I think Kareem has a chance to do that.
Yeah, I went back and looked at last year's draft. They only lost two of those guys, and one of them I thought would stick. Davis, the linebacker from Auburn,
Yeah.
and then a defensive back. So this group looks like it's doing a good job of drafting right now.
Yeah, and a lot of people wonder about tight end if they would draft one. I think they're really trying to figure out what Drew Sample is. And they have Uzoma out there at tight end too. So
Yeah, they're
that's
all
probably
right
the
there.
reason. Yeah. With the sixth round, finally take a lineman. That's Hakeem Adeniji from Kansas. He fits the mold of what they had been doing all along. Team captain, 4-year starter, also a guy they saw at the Senior Bowl. What do you think about Adeniji?
Saw him. I told you, saw him on that Les Miles show. 4-year starter. I know he was at Kansas, but good body build. We don't have enough linemen right now. You and I have griped about that for the last 2 or 3 years. We whiffed on Billy Price as of right now. So if would have took 7 linemen, I would have been happy. But a bunch of people I thought would get drafted by the Bengals went by the wayside. So to get this guy, and what round did we get him? The 6th?
6th round.
I've got him down here on that report that we get as a 3rd or 4th rounder. So solid pickup.
Yeah, I saw a few people who said, he played tackle at Kansas, but the belief is that they're going to shift him inside, have him as a guard. I saw a few people who said that they had him as the highest ranked guard um, under their evaluation. So I think that he'll definitely stick around. Um, and some people said that his coaching at Kansas wasn't the best, and he had a lot of room to grow still. So they think that he can definitely have a chance to stick there.
Well, you got to figure until Les Miles got there, the coaching wasn't great at Kansas.
No. Last pick of the draft, another linebacker. They picked up Marcus Bailey for Purdue. Another kid who had injury concerns, but they feel like he has a chance to. That's the reason he fell. So that he might end up being a red shirt kind of year kid. But it seemed like a lot of people thought highly of him going into the draft process.
Yeah, but you said ACL injuries. I think he's almost all the way back. He looks like a special teamer early because he can run. Saw the ESPN clips on him at Purdue. Looks like he's going to be a good one. He moves. I think what the biggest thing is, they didn't go by all these how people run the 40 or how high they jump. They went by football ability, and he looks like he's a solid football player from everything I've read on these reports.
Yeah, it seemed like Duke Tobin and Zach Taylor kind of, Marvin Lewis preferred the slow, plodding linebackers who were hard hitters and run stuffers. Seems like they're trying to move away from that and get the more athletic guys, guys who were able to perform in college instead of, you know, maybe they weren't as strong as other guys, but they definitely played well on the field.
I agree with you. We need football players, and this group of seven.
Yeah,
I'm going to bet all seven make it.
Yeah, another thing that Zach Taylor and Tobin said they were focused on were getting team captains, leaders, trying to build Zach Taylor's culture in the locker room. I really think they did a great job of that with the guys they picked, even like Burrow. From the moment, of course, you got all the talking heads who said, oh, he doesn't want to be in Cincinnati, blah, blah, blah. It seemed like he's very mature, considering all the process and all the hoopla. I think he kind of can be that leader in the locker room when guys like Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap, guys like that end up moving on.
Yeah, because we're going to start losing those guys here pretty soon. Very easily lose Atkins or Dunlap next year. You got to figure Bobby Hart's not going to be around much longer. Sean Williams is on his last leg. So definitely got younger here the last 2 years.
Of course, the big question, not concerning this, is Joe Mixon. He'll be eligible for a contract extension coming up. Some people have speculated that he'd be tempted to maybe hold out if he didn't get what he wanted. What do you feel about Mixon? Do you think they should extend him? Do you think that they should look for another running back?
Pay him, but they can't give him money like the Rams did Todd Gurley. Can't overextend yourself. Running backs, you can find them. He's been a good get for the Bengals. He's got to remember we gave him a chance when nobody else would. And he's a good one, but we can't be paying him Todd Gurley money and then trying to get the cap right when he gets hurt.
Yeah, the thing that really hurt was Christian McCaffrey's contract that he just got. They're from the same draft class, or not the same draft class, but they're eligible at the same time. So he's probably going to look at that money and think, oh my gosh, if McCaffrey can get that, I should get somewhere close, even though McCaffrey's a totally different player than Mixon is.
Right. He does more catching out of the backfield now. Yeah, they're two different types of players. So I don't even know who his agent is, but hopefully they'll get it worked out because he's a big cog in their running attack.
All right, so going to go through and kind of look at how the Bengals look right now as far as depth chart's concerned. I've got this depth chart pulled up here. Obviously, Burrow is going to be your starting quarterback. I'm going to go ahead and assume that Andy Dalton, because of financial restrictions, will not be back. So he'll be backed up by Ryan Finley and Jake Delagala. The plan here is if Burrow goes down, there's really not much you're going to be able to do anyway. But they've got some young guys backed up there.
I'm getting a veteran guy.
Yeah, you're probably going to have to bring in a vet of some kind. Finley, last year, it was rough. Just could not see it with Finley. So maybe there's somebody out there they can bring in. Obviously, Jameis is off the market today. He signed with the Saints earlier. But
Is he signed or has he still got a few minutes? I didn't think he was going to sign to 4 o'clock.
The plan is he's going to sign. I haven't seen that he's actually done it yet. I know Taysom Hill got a big deal from them. So at running back, Mixon's your starter. Giovanni Bernard's still hanging around. And then they've got 2 guys they drafted last year, Travion Williams and Rodney Anderson was another injury concern that fell last year. A lot of people had high hopes for him. How do you feel about the running backs?
Great room. Don't need to do anything with it. Williams and Anderson, they both got potential. Of course, they're not going to get to show it with Mixon and Bernard, but if one of them gets hurt, they'll get a chance. I know they'll bring in somebody to training camp just for a body to lessen the load, but training camp room with running back, leave it alone.
All right, so receiver, your outside receivers right now, you got A.J. Green, T. Higgins, John Ross, and Auden Tate. In your slot, you got Tyler Boyd and Alex Erickson. Feels like receiver could be one of the really big strengths of this team this year.
Just like the running back. You may agree on John Ross. I don't even know how many games he played in. It seems like he played in 2 and got hurt, and then he came back at the end last year, something like that. So you can't count on John Ross, but Tate's out there, so that's good. And, as long as the Bengals don't go to Dayton, Ohio, and have a training camp day on that turf, A.J. Green should be all right. I bet he doesn't play. If we even have preseason football, which I really don't believe we will, but if we do, I bet he doesn't even play a play.
Oh yeah, it's possible that they just bubble wrap him and then roll him out week 1. Let's go to
wide receivers are great and our running backs are great.
So tight end, we touched on it some. Uzoma and Drew Sample. They're really hoping to see more out of Sample this year. After last year, he struggled and then went down to injury at the end of the year. But we already touched on those guys. Uzoma will be the number 1. He'll be the primary pass catcher there. All right, let's get into it. Offensive line. So as of right now, your starters across the offensive line, Jonah Williams is projected to be your left tackle. Michael Jordan at left guard, Trey Hopkins at center, Xavier Su'a-Filo at right guard, and Bobby Hart and Fred Johnson battling out at right tackle. It's rough.
Duck should be the operative word right now, because Jonah Williams is a rookie.
Yeah.
He's a rookie. He's Joe Burrow. And Michael Jordan, at least he got some work under fire last year. You would think he'd be better. Hopkins, I like Hopkins. Bobby Hart, I think he's actually better than what people give him credit for. I mean, I guess he started every game last year. So, I mean, granted, they didn't have a lot.
Yeah,
who's our right guard right now?
Xavier Su'a-Filo.
He's a run guy, which we run, so he's a run guy. So I feel like 2 of them, Hopkins and the Cowboy pickup, they're all right. Bobby Hart's not as bad as everybody lets on. I know he gets a lot of penalties, but
yeah, Bobby Hart's as far as I saw in grades, his pass protection was pretty good. It was just a run game he struggled with.
So, boys, I ain't running left right now until I figure out if they can handle it. I don't know what they're going to do. That they obviously don't have enough. I was trying to think who their backups. Redmond's back from the drug thing, I
So
guess.
right now, your backups at each spot. Left tackle, your backups Isaiah Prince. He's a kid out of Ohio State. He was 6th-round pick. The Dolphins had him as, he's a guy. Adeniji is the backup at left guard, according to this. Billy Price still hanging in there, the backup at center, behind Hopkins, who got a big contract this offseason, so he's locked in. Redmond's your backup at right guard, and then Johnson, who they got from the Steelers, is your backup right tackle right now.
Yeah, the O-line room's not a very good-looking room right now. So, sort of like, I don't know, it's a bad-looking room until they prove themselves, especially Jordan and Williams.
Yeah, especially you got to think that they'll probably bring in somebody else when cuts are made, probably. But yeah, that offensive line is not great right now. Switching over to defense, another strength of the team, D-line. The projected starters right now, you got Geno Atkins, you got DJ Reader, who was the big free agent acquisition during the offseason. And then you've got a rotation of 3 others with Sam Hubbard, Carlos Dunlap, and Carl Lawson on the edges. How do you feel about that group?
You want me to let out a Rick Fire?
Sure.
I better not. I heard Billy Donovan talking about that yesterday. A great room. Like you said, definitely the best room on the defensive side. Geno Atkins has got a buddy now. They used to have Pecco there that helped them out and took some of the pressure off of them. Now Reader's there. He's young. And Geno had a good year last year, even though he was getting double teamed all the time. His numbers fixing to go back up again. Great defensive room right there, just like the wideouts and running backs.
Of course, backups there. You got Khalid Kareem as an outside guy, Andrew Brown, Josh Tupou, Rennell Wren, and Ryan Glasgow. So they got some depth there, some guys that have played over the course of the year. Linebacker looks a lot different than it did last year. It looks like when you're in a nickel, it's going to be Pratt and Bynes as your starters. They'll work Wilson and then Davis Gaither and Bailey in. You also got Jordan Evans, who's a holdover, who's more of a special teams guy, but had to play a lot last year. Linebacker room definitely looks a lot different than it did the year before.
Yeah, well, it's got to be better. It's not as bad as the offensive line room right now. You and I have had discussions about this forever. We had old Preston Brown, God bless Preston. He just got old and slow at the same time, and we've got rid of a few linebackers here, so it's more athletic, it's younger, and if they don't work out, we'll draft some more next year. We're gonna get this linebacker room right.
Yeah, a lot of people speculated about possibly bringing Nick Vigil back from last year, but it seemed like Vigil had kind of worn out his welcome. He couldn't, he played a lot, but he just couldn't be that impactful linebacker. And they gave up so many yards to tight ends last year. They wanted to get somebody who could cover tight ends.
Yeah, I hope he has fun in San Diego. He'll be in Los Angeles Charger now, so he can go out there and have fun with them.
With his new logo that looks like the Rams logo. All right. Another position that went from weak to potentially strong, cornerback. Your starters as of right now on the outside are William Jackson and Trey Waynes, and your slot corners Mackenzie Alexander. Waynes and Alexander both in from the Vikings. You also have Darius Phillips, who flashed a lot last year, had some interceptions. What do you think about the corners right now?
Got to be better. Dre Kirkpatrick, glad he seems like he was always getting beat. I guess this cornerbacks when they get beat, but he's gone. Jackson better stay healthy. I think he was the best. We lost Denard too, those two. So that's all right. I think we've improved ourselves at corners, provided they all stay out on the field. I think the Minnesota guys are fine. They played for Zimmer. So if they can play for Zimmer, they can play for the Bengals.
Yeah, Alexander's on a 1 year, I think $4 million deal, but a lot of people said that he was one of the best slot corners around there. William Jackson's going to have a contract decision. I've heard some people speculate that they're probably not going to bring him back. They'll end up drafting more corners, which is something we're painfully aware of. So moving to safety, another strong position. They strengthened even more. Your starters right now are Jesse Bates and Von Bell. With Sean Williams, they've speculated they may go to some 3 safety looks this year. That's a pretty talented group.
I don't know how they lied to Von Bell. Have no idea what story they told Von Bell to get him to go from the Saints to the Bengals. But they have lied to him, and he bought it hook, line, and sinker. And I'm glad he got paid good money to come from the Saints. Day one starter, never gets hurt. Hopefully, he won't get hurt for the Bengals. The safety rooms is as good as the whole defensive back rooms as good as the D line room. So if the linebackers can do anything, they'll be better defensively.
Yeah, it seemed like kind of the focus this offseason was they looked at the team and they thought, you know what, we're 2-14. We had a tough year. Let's worry about fixing at least one side of the ball. And they really went aggressive on defense to build that up. I feel like the defense could surprise some people this year.
It's going to be much improved, and all those people say that the Bengals don't spend money. Well, they spend money when they do spend it, they do. And this is 1 year that they have, so don't listen to Dan Patrick and all those people.
So looking at this team for the upcoming season, obviously I would hope there'd be an improvement over 2-14 from last year. What do you think the Bengals do this year? How do you think they'll finish?
Well, I don't think they'll have a winning record. They just got too many weaknesses still. It's a minor miracle that Joe Mixon rushes for over 1,000 yards behind that line.
Hey, he did it last year.
I know. And he got a new quarterback, a talented one, but he's got weapons. I'm going 7-9.
7-9. I think it's possible. Of course, obviously the main thing is how Burrow performs. You're going to expect some rookie mistakes, but he has a chance to really change this team and change the culture around the Bengals.
Well, you got to look at the other rookie quarterbacks, how they've done. Mayfield did all right his first year. He made mistakes, like you said, got adjusted. Kyler Murray was fine. And Daniel Jones had his moments. So if you go by and look at the rookies, because of the way the NFL is now, they're used to throwing, so that's one of his strengths. And he's got a good running back like he did at LSU. Somebody said, I saw on Twitter, you probably saw it, he played with more talent on offense at LSU than he is with the Bengals. Well, his offensive line was probably better, college-wise, not pro-wise, but college-wise, because I think all those guys got drafted. So I think you're going to be able to score some points unless he just gets confused by defenses that he hasn't seen. And the defense got to be better. So
Yeah,
I'm
really
7-9. I don't think we'll have an 8 or a winning record.
Yeah, I could see 6-10, 7-9. It's just the division's so tough, especially at the Ravens. The Steelers are kind of coming down some. The Browns, you just never know about them. The schedule's pretty favorable if you go and look at that. But I think they really do have a chance to change the culture and start building for the future.
Yeah, we just need to improve this year. We don't need that big jump where we go playoffs and then we have a bad year next year. We need just to improve, and then next year, you and I need to go ahead and start looking at offensive linemen that are coming out. Look at that. Well, obviously, we need to look at cornerbacks. So we need to look at O-line and cornerbacks for next year.
Yeah, I already saw a mock draft was out. They had us taking an offensive lineman from Ohio State in the first round next year. So,
as long as it's not Billy Price's brother, it's all right.
Yeah, I think the needs for next year are definitely already apparent. And then depending on what happens to Mixon, that may be a situation too. So who knows?
Yeah, we'll find a running back. They're like they're like 5'10" guards in the state of Tennessee in basketball. We can go down here to courts and find us a running back. So we'll find one somewhere if Joe don't want to be a Bengal.
Yeah, running backs, I always equate them to like closers in baseball. Unless you got a good team, I mean, having a running back's great and all, but it really doesn't do much for you until you've kind of, like the Chiefs, like they drafted a running back this year because they know that guy could help them win more games next year. But having a running back on a 2-14 team, I mean, that's a great and all, but doesn't do much for you.
Yeah, I mean, he got 1,000 yards, but he didn't help us win a whole lot of football games. So,
yeah, last year it just seemed like anytime the Bengals got down, they just couldn't come back until that game in Miami, which was just a mess last year. But it seemed like as soon as they got down,
one game that came back.
It seemed like they couldn't. Once they got down, they couldn't get back into it. So hopefully that'll change this year.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right. Well, any other comments, concerns about the Bengals?
No concerns about the Bengals. I'm process. We're not going to rebuild in 1 year. You're 2-14 for a reason because your Jimmy and Joes aren't as good as everybody else's Jimmy and Joes. But our Jimmy and Joes have improved.
Yeah, I think that Taylor will have a lot more options this year because we don't know about Taylor yet. I mean, he had a 2-14 season with not a lot of talent, so hopefully he gets a chance to actually coach them up this year.
He's going to be bad.
So we'll stop it there. I think we've killed about 40 minutes of brain cells for people. So hopefully they enjoyed this. We may try and do it more.
This should be one of the most watched shows. This should go to Cincinnati. We don't need to worry about people.
I hope people enjoy it. I might try and start up an actual podcast and see how that goes. So thanks for hopping on with me. Enjoy talking the Bengals. You're the only Bengals guy I think I can talk about. Chase Clem tried to co-opt this, but he doesn't know anything about the Bengals. So
he probably don't even know their colors. He'd have to think about it.
The only color he's worried about green, and that's not Rockwood green.
It's this kind of green. This
that's
green.
Right. All right. So hopefully you all enjoyed joining us. Post this on my YouTube channel, on Twitter, Facebook. Comments, concerns, interested in seeing it again, let me know. Thank you for joining us today, Coach K.
All right. See you later.
See ya.